Hello and welcome to the latest edition of the Oh No 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 podcast. I am your de facto host today without Duncan or Robbie in the host seat. So my name is Blair Hopcroft and I'm joined today by Scott Fleming. Hello, Scott.
All right, all good.
I've got Leslie Mabin sitting in a car, freezing his backside off. Morning, Leslie.
Good morning from Fort Augustus at the bottom end of Loch Ness, where Nessie, Howdens, Matalan and the Keswick Bridge took one hell of a beating.
Love that. I don't even need to do the introductions. This is how good this podcast is getting. All the way from a balmy 11 degrees Barcelona, it's Carol Allison-Smith. Morning, Carol.
Hola, good morning. How's everyone? It's cold. I'm going to say it's cold. 11 is cold.
No, it's not. And joining us again, having been on the opening show of the podcast and not been back since, we've managed to get him back. It is Kev Barretto. Good morning, Kev.
Hi, thanks very much. Brilliant to be back.
Good to have you, mate. Right, so let's kick off with a trip north. We ventured north of the wall and headed up to Inverness yesterday in a game that, for all intents and purposes, nobody in the world seemed to think was going to go ahead. There was games cancelled left, right and centre. If you're like me, you woke up in Fife yesterday with about 2 or 3 inches of snow. And as we headed north and through and into the Highlands, the snow subsided and the sunshine came out, and we headed north for what was actually a really enjoyable way to break a hoodoo, a 23-year hoodoo that I know the man sitting in his car and is desperate to tell us about. So, Leslie, I'm going to kick off with you. Tell me, what was your thoughts on the game yesterday?
I was just absolutely delighted. Now, if there's any Caley fans listening, in some ways this is nothing personal, but I was born north of the Keswick Bridge. And as everybody knows, if you come from north of the Keswick Bridge, you are not allowed to like Caley Thistle. So, this was a personal one for me as well. I think, after Dunfermline, this is the game that I look forward to most of all in the season because, seeing us trying to beat that hoodoo, it matters a lot. When I was growing up, this was the game I usually got to go and see. And I have seen a lot of shite at the Caledonian Stadium down the years. I have seen a lot of abominable things. I've seen Isma Goncalves carried off by 2 men. I've seen Simon Miyotto shipping 5 goals in a freezing 5-0 defeat. I've seen all kinds of things that no human being should have to see. So this was a wonderful, wonderful game yesterday. I'll throw it over to those who were maybe a little bit more critically detached. Tell us a bit more about how their feelings going to the actual game were.
Yeah, it's a pretty good way to go. So, Scott, you would be watching online, I'm presuming?
I had it on a stream. Well, the first half was a bit dodgy, but no, it was. No, I thought it was a pretty good game, considering the conditions. I did need to ask because I couldn't tell on the stream. Was it water? Was it sand that was bouncing up with the ball every time, or ice? Because you see it on the highlights even better. Anytime the ball was getting passed or bounced, there was something kicking up off the surface. But it was interesting. I thought it was sand. I was just like,
yeah, I was going to say, I noticed that watching the highlights. I'll be honest, mind you, I'd been drinking since afternoon on the bus, but I never noticed anything at the game. Kev, you were with us in the icy north yesterday. What did you think?
Well, first of all, I didn't notice any ice or sand. Yeah, I've got no idea, Scott. Sorry. I mean, yeah.
Pitch was, to be fair, the pitch was in pretty good condition considering.
Yeah.
I think, Leslie, you said it was -10 overnight the night before.
Aye, it was -10. I mean, hats off to the Cali ground staff for getting that on, in all seriousness. I mean, they tweeted a photo about an hour before kickoff, and it was in the pitch was in great nick. I mean, I don't know if it was freezing up during the game or whatever, but absolutely fair play to the Cali ground staff for the good work they did to get that game on.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Carol, talk us through your thoughts. Kind of team line comes out, so kind of an hour before kickoff, and we kind of talked extensively through the week on the preview show about the lineup and how we had no idea what he was going to do. And then there was kind of a few notable names missing from that. No Ewan Murray, obviously, in there was the kind of big one, and obviously Scott Brown as well was missing. What was your thoughts when the team line came through?
There was either on the group chat and a couple of definitely on the chat board on Raith TV. There was a discussion was it a back 4 or a back 3? That was it. And there was still discussion when the team came, was it a back four or a back three? Were we going to, and then looking at the reports this morning, they've lined it up 4-4, Vaughan front and then Hamilton off Vaughan at the front.
It was more the other way around, I think, actually. But
that's what I thought as well. Definitely felt like Hamilton was sitting back off Vaughan and Vaughan was further up. Yeah. I think O'Reilly is a signing and a half. We have done really well with him. I think it's going to be hard to get back into the team with him on the back.
We talked about that through the week as well. Just the idea that people keep just taking their chances. You know, people come in. Murray's been quite good about that, actually. He's talked about, you know, if you come in and you take your chance, you're going to get to play, sort of thing. So it was good to get that. Scott, what did you think of the lineup when you saw it? Were you thinking back three or back four? Because I'll be honest, I had no clue when we saw that team sheet.
No, I didn't have a clue either. I mean, to be honest, see if we hadn't had that cup game last week where we've tweaked everything, I would have been a bit worried going into the game. But because of what happened last week, I was like, well, the guys will know what they're doing. It's something they've probably worked on again all week in training. I've got to agree, Dan O'Reilly's been superb first two games. I mean, for somebody to go almost 6 months without competitive football and come straight in and play 90 minutes back-to-back games. And he gave away a penalty, which wasn't a penalty last week. But other than that, he's been, flawless, to be honest. And I mean, everyone's brought up that he's been like obviously keeping himself fit because he's like a personal trainer in his own time or something and stuff like that. So I think it was just match sharpness, but he looks like he's been playing all season, to be honest. So to get somebody like that in is brilliant. But no, overall, I thought first half we were really good. I mean, Inverness barely even got out their own half at times. It was ridiculous how we went in 0-0 at half time. I thought the main thing that I took for the first half was that we were just kind of snatching at everything when we got a chance. It wasn't like, even for the not goal that we'll maybe go on to, Vaughan doesn't even connect with it and it kind of just slices to the bottom corner and you're just like, if he connects with it, it's a goal because he's, 6 yards out, something like that. So, no, I thought first half we just seemed to be snatching at stuff and it wasn't going our way, even though we're in control of the game. Easton, again, was lining up his defender and kind of jinking either way, but again, nothing was really coming off for him. But no, without creating loads and loads of chances, we just dominated that first half.
Yeah, it was a really solid performance, I thought, actually, that in that regard. Given that we didn't know how the team was going to line up, and obviously for anybody who wasn't at the game yesterday, we ended up with Josh Mullen playing as a right back, which was really surprising, actually. I think had you thought we were going to do a back four, I'm presuming we would have all thought Scott McGill would come in and play right back. Would have been the kind of more obvious option. Leslie, what did you think of Josh Mullen's performance at right back? It's obviously not his natural position.
I think he did all right. I mean, I won't lie, I was worried for the first 10 minutes of the game. You know, it's kind of like a Jenga tower, you know, and you're taking a piece out every time and at some point it's going to topple over. And then when I saw the team lines, I was kind of thinking, this is it. This is going to be the day the Jenga tower collapses. Because if you look at that back four, so we started with Liam Dick, who, you know, you're quite happy with having him there. Dan O'Reilly, who's been in the door 2 weeks. Dylan Corr, who's come in having been injured and, you know, was making his first league debut. And then a winger at right back. And so for the first 10 minutes, and I do not mean this as a criticism of any of these guys individually, it did look like four guys who had not played before in a back four being told to play together in a back four. And, you know, I was kind of thinking, you know, we could lose something early doors here. They settled down quite quickly, though. And I think, you know, Mullen, I mean, he did all right. He didn't chip anything. They didn't tear him to shreds. I mean, as is often the case, you could probably pick through it forensically and you could find things where Ross Millen might have done better. But again, and we'll come to this later, what we maybe lost a little bit defensively with having Mullen there, we more than made up with what he brings us going forwards. And that was what kind of helped us out a lot at the end. So, you know, I think like many of our players, we're asking them to do things that isn't kind of top of their skill set. They just do it. And, you know, it got us through.
Yeah, I was a wee bit surprised with the way he lined up the two centre halves. He seemed to have Dylan Corr on the right-hand side of that back four, which kind of surprised me a little bit in the sense that I thought he might have had, just spread the kind of the experience a little bit. But no, I agree. I think they did really well. Kev, what did you think of the first half as a whole?
Yeah. Well, I mean, first of all, in defence, I thought between Dylan Core and Dan O'Reilly, that they covered pretty much everything. I don't think that, from what I can remember, Big Kev had a single save to make at all. And a couple of crosses and stuff like that. But I thought it was a very attacking first half display. As I can't remember if it was Scott who said, Dylan Easton, I just thought he was running at them and putting good balls in. And as Duncan Ferguson said in his interview, really Inverness didn't do very much, but they defended well, to be fair, and our shooting wasn't brilliant, but we're certainly creating chances, and I thought that the defence played very well.
Yeah, you can kind of see why. I mean, Duncan Ferguson, obviously having come in, we talked about it midweek. He's kind of turned that tide around, and they're not winning convincingly. Neither are we. We're winning by 1 goal every week, but they're not scoring a huge amount of goals, but they're not conceding a huge amount of goals either. You can kind of see that. I thought they were quite well drilled, actually. They were quite well organised throughout the game. So, Carol, I'll come to you because I'll be honest, the three of us that were in the stadium, it was at the other end. But that, Scott mentioned it already, that goal that wasn't a goal that could have been a goal. What was your take on that? Because I was still celebrating, to be honest, when the game was carrying on.
Well, I didn't have a stream, so I was audio only. But the commentators on Raith TV, they obviously had replay, and they were like, "Oh, it looks like it." So this morning at 1 o'clock in the morning, Barcelona time, with a few beers in me, I decided to watch the match replay, and I swear I must have rewatched that thing. It would be a small miracle if it did just bounce off the bar and then skite along the line perfectly and not go in and make the net bulge in that way. It would be a very big Christmas miracle. But in real time, yeah, it looks like it just skims across the line. You do have to kind of zoom in on Raith TV's replay. So in the ref's defence, he probably couldn't see it. In the assistant's defence, he should have called it, I think.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if the net bulging was the ball or the goalie, actually. The goalie seemed to kind of put his hand into the net almost, but I wasn't sure, because I'd heard similar from you. I think actually it might have been you guys in the group chat, because we were obviously at the game, and you're getting the nets bulged. Like that was like, it's definitely a goal. The ref's out to get us. Scott, what did you think? Did your stream kind of shine any light on that?
No, sadly in the first half it wasn't great, so I kind of obviously was just going by what there was somebody for Radio Scotland was at the game, and even they've said on the radio, when somebody's gone to them, said, I think it's in. The Raith TV guys thought it was in as well, so it was a little bit strange. I think from the highlights, it's too inconclusive to give it. Like, I think it's fair enough that, and I actually do think it's the goalie's hand that's hit the net. I don't think it's the ball. The ball's hit the post. Somehow Ridges has a big lump at a goalie. It's went underneath him without even hitting him, because if it hits him, it goes in the net. So somehow it's managed to fit underneath him and go to his defender, who's managed to clear it. But it was just so unlucky how that ball's not gone in. But I do think that it was probably only half of the ball was over the line. I don't know in the Championship if the rest have got these watches for the goal line stuff.
No, I don't think so.
I thought that maybe the Championship had at least the goal line sort of stuff, but I might be wrong. But because you do sometimes see it that the ref still like looks at his watch and then just gives a goal when you think it's whether he's just trying to put on a show. I don't know.
I was going to say, I think they just think they're on the telly. Aye. Leslie, did you have any thoughts on that goal before we kind of move it to the second half?
I mean, it's very hard to say. I think, like Carol says, we don't have VAR, we don't have that technology. So some of you who are listening might know, regular listeners will know I shout a lot for Japan and international football, and we had a magnificent goal against Spain last year where Daizen Maeda and Kaoru Mitoma between them kept the ball in, but then that was 10 minutes of tech and deliberation, different angles to decide that this ball had stayed in. You don't have that. The ref, the linesmen are having to make a snap decision. I would agree that I think what made the net ripple was Mark Ridgers. I am not convinced from the angles that I saw that the whole ball crossed the line, but we just don't have the evidence to make a firm decision either way. I think in the heat of the moment, it was probably the right decision.
Yeah. I think over the piece that first half, we were really solid. I think we played really well, but I think Scott's kind of touched on it. It felt a wee bit like we were snatching. I don't really remember us having huge chances in the. I mean, that was obviously was one, but there was one moment. I think it was Dan O'Reilly was absolutely bundled over in the box for a penalty shout, which I remember shouting for at the time and thinking that it was a penalty. But I must admit, having watched the replay, it looks a stone waller though, doesn't it?
Oh, it absolutely is. I had it done last night. I made a wee note just to remember myself, and I couldn't believe that the ref just played on. I thought it was going back to it. I thought it was ice hockey all over again. I thought it was a great cross-check film, but it was no. I thought O'Reilly almost looked so bamboozled that it wasn't even given, and then Liam Dick then called for a handball straight after he's flicked it up and it's hit the guy in the hand. But I genuinely thought I thought both of them were penalties, the one we got later on in the game, but I actually thought that one was more of a penalty than the one we got at the end. So whether the ref is also taking that into account later on, I don't know, but it's bizarre when you see O'Reilly given against them last week for absolutely nothing, and then he gets cleaned out by somebody that's not even looking at the ball. He's kind of looked at it and went, "Nah, I'm getting the guy," and then just wipes him out. So
I was going to say that's the key for me. I mean, I've done a lot of kind of youth football, school football over the years and stuff, and you hear the ref saying it all the time, and it's the one thing they always say: you're not looking at the ball. You're looking at the man. You're not looking at the ball. It's like the most obvious kind of foul in the book is if your eyes are on the ball and you collide, the ref can go, well, it's one of those 50-50 things. But when you're clearly looking at the man, I thought he just kind of jumped straight into him. It's one of them again. Had it been on the goalkeeper, he'd have given a foul against the goalie, or for the goalie, sorry. Anybody else want to chip in on that penalty shout before we move it along to a second half?
Definite penalty.
Definite penalty. Definitely a conspiracy. Talking of conspiracies, actually, can we just take a minute? Because I know we toyed with different versions of what's going to be our big question at the end, but I am thoroughly loving the Dundee United conspiracy at the moment that somehow the SFA.
It's amazing. I'm loving it.
I mean, a team that are sitting top of the league, unbeaten, and they think that the SFA are out to get them. It's tremendous. Totally tin pot. It truly is fantastic. Right, so we move into the second half. And I actually, personally, I thought we started the second half pretty well, which we haven't done an awful lot of. We got the ball down and we kept kind of going and we kept kind of plugging away. But then the inevitable happens and we switch off and that man, Billy McKay, jumps in and scores a header. Carol, I'll come to you first. You'll have obviously watched the replay. We'll work our way around everybody. But what was your kind of thoughts on that opening spell of the second half? Sorry, up until we conceded that goal.
We looked like we knew what the game plan was. We needed to score before it all flops because we are well aware that between minute 65, if we're lucky, till about 75. Something switches off. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's the energy gel that they've had at half time hasn't kicked in or something. Something doesn't happen in those minutes. And what we've definitely improved over the last few weeks is we come out the second half knowing that this is going to happen. So yeah, we were quite solid and strong, but why are we switching off? What switches off? Does anybody have any theories?
I personally don't. It seems to just be what we do. There's a lot of it that wonders if it's like kind of sadomasochism in a way, like they quite like being behind so that they can come back and win a game. I don't know. I genuinely can't put my finger on it.
Yeah, but it's such a pattern. And what's surprising is that obviously other teams have observed this, but they don't seem to observe the last 10 minutes.
Totally.
They observe up till about minute 85 and then go, that's fine, we'll be fine. We'll be fine. And it's, so it seems we're solid, but then something seems to happen about minute 65. And I have no idea what it is.
Leslie, what was your kind of thoughts on that goal?
This is the thing with Billy McKay. He's a pest. He's an absolute pest. And he's been doing this for over a decade. And he's one of these very good championship level strikers who can be completely kind of marked out a game, but he will get one chance and he will bury it. And in fairness, it was a good ball in from Witherspoon. Probably only the two players of any kind of real quality or consequence that Inverness had. No surprise to see them combining for the goal. Again, if you were kind of breaking it down, you could say, well, Corr could maybe have done better there. I think that would be very harsh across the piece on Corr. That's maybe the reason why it's happened, but I think it would be very harsh to pin the blame on him, given that is his first league game. And he's got to mark one of the most experienced and best strikers in the championship. It's a tall order. The ball comes sailing over Corr's head, and McKay connects with it exceptionally well, and that is what he does.
Kev, what was your thinking with that goal coming in? Did you see it coming?
Yeah. I've got to say, second half, Caley Thistle definitely came out of the blocks and were putting us under a bit of pressure. They made a couple of chances, and as Leslie said, it was a superb cross, and Dylan Corr were just very, very slightly misjudged it. It was unlucky, but it was a decent finish, and so same as Leslie. I certainly wouldn't want to criticise anyone, whether it was Kev for not coming out for it or Dylan Corr for not winning the header. It was a good cross and well put away. And to be fair to Caley Thistle, that they were having the better of the game at that point. After we completely dominated the first half and were making a load of chances, it did look for a lot, same as what Carol was saying, it looked, whether it was we switched off or they had just switched on. I could see it coming, and it was probably deserved.
It feels like one of those things. I never know if it's knowing what the Rovers are like or if it's just every football fan feels the same way when you're dominating a game like that and they break up the pitch. You think, all right, here we go. Like, it just felt like it was going to happen, not because it felt like it was going to happen, if that makes sense, but just because we were kind of chipping away and not really getting anywhere. Scott, what did you make of that goal? I had a slightly different take on it, but I'm interested to know what you thought.
Obviously, I seen it live on the stream at the time, but I thought I want to see it again later on in the highlights, because to me, I thought it was just almost like a hit and hope for Witherspoon. I thought he's not even looked. He's just hooked his foot round, and it's a good hopeful ball. But at the same time, I thought what it looked to me was two guys that either haven't played a lot of football recently, or you had one guy that hasn't played a lot of football and is inexperienced, and you've got another boy that doesn't play right back. So it was a mix-up communication, I reckon, between the two of them. And Mullen's not used to following a runner into the back post, which McKay, as Leslie's mentioned it, Billy McKay knows every trick in the book. He's been around the game that long. He's played international football and all. He knows where to be, what run to make. And he's probably looked and went, right, I'm winning this ball. I'm just going for it. And he's ran into the back post, headed it. Good header. But I do think it's something that we should have been dealing with. I think it was a hopeful ball which just managed to float up to McKay, and he's got his... I mean, McKay's, 5'10" if you're lucky? So Dylan's got to probably do a little bit better, but at the same time, the guy's missed a lot of football. He's still, 20, 19? Like, I almost keep thinking that he's actually a bit older than he is, because he just looks a bit older than the likes of Masson and that, but he's only actually, I think, a year older than them guys. So it's something that we just need to remember, that these guys are going to make mistakes. They've not played football, they're young, whatever, but I do think it was more our fault than them putting in a good cross.
Yeah, I must admit, I agree completely. I think definitely on the point about Dylan Corr, I've mentioned this a couple of times as well. Like, I think because we signed him and because he was brought in as a first team player, we do kind of think of him a bit differently, but he is a young guy. Do you know what I mean? A really young guy, and actually really quite inexperienced. I mean, he's got one season under his belt in the Lowland League, and then has played for us a couple of times in the League Cup, and that's kind of it. I mean, it's not a lot of football. I agree. I think hitting Hope's maybe a bit harsh on Witherspoon. I think it's one of those crosses that any good winger puts on. You know, there's an area to aim for, basically, and you're sticking the ball in there in the hope that your striker will read it and kind of get there. And for Dylan Corr, he's kind of in that position, but he's not marking anybody at that point, really, so it's kind of caught underneath it. But I thought Josh Mullen totally switched off. He just fell asleep. And you can actually see that when the ball hits the net, Josh Mullen kind of looks over his shoulder and goes, oh, crap. Like,
that's my man.
Yeah, and I think it's one that had he been a regular right back, I would probably be sitting here being really critical of him because he's completely switched off. But he's not, and so you kind of can't. He'd had a decent game up to that point. But yeah, it's one of them. I think when they watch it back, I think Josh will rue that one a little bit, because he doesn't have to do a lot. You know, he just has to take 3 or 4 steps across and header the ball out. I think it's interesting what Kev said as well. Actually, I never even thought about the goalie coming out because it wasn't a huge way outside the box or anything. So there was potential for that. But yeah, a goal that kind of we felt was coming for all the wrong reasons. And then Duncan Ferguson does I think we're now calling it a Veldman, and decides to take off the best 2 players, the most experienced and the best 2 players that he has. I'm not even going to ask, does anybody want to jump in and make fun of Duncan Ferguson for that?
Yeah, I'm actually going for a slightly different take. I think taking them off partly was just because they're goosed. I mean, I think between them, they've probably got a combined age of about 76 or 77. You know, McKay, okay, you can wander about up front. If you're relying on a winger who's at that age, you're not going to get a full game out of him.
Yeah.
And I think it was a wee bit different maybe to Veldman. Veldman, that was phenomenal arrogance. You could say the same with Partick as well. They thought they'd won it when we got the 2-2. This, I think, was actually just these guys are knackered. And, you know, they're very good players, but it was very clear that when they came off, all Caley were able to do was just kind of block things and get in the way of stuff. But it gave us a big chance.
Yeah. Billy McKay's one for me. I think I agree with you, Leslie, where Witherspoon's concerned. He's also not played a huge amount of football. Do you know what I mean? And he's been training with Inverness, which we know is substandard. So he's not going to be the fittest. But I just think Billy McKay's one of those players. I can't see how he'd be that tired. He wasn't running about a huge amount, but he's the kind of player that's always going to chip in. I mean, he did. He's always going to chip in with a goal. Like, it seems crazy that they made those 2 substitutions and the game turned on those 2 substitutions again, because I felt like we actually pushed them back a little bit.
Can I just come in there now? After Caley scored, they had another couple of chances. Now Kev made a decent save, and they hit the woodwork. But did Kev get a touch to it? Because it looked no, he didn't. All right.
No, okay. I thought the same as you. We were applauding him in the stadium, in the stand. The angle we were at, it looked like he pushed it onto the bar, and I thought, that's a great save. But I watched the replay a few times this morning, and no, he's never touched it.
Oh, okay.
But you're right though. They actually probably had their best spell at 1-0. They made a few chances and, you know, created a few opportunities to get back into the game. But I felt that as the substitutions were kind of made, they kind of lost. I felt like Witherspoon was the player that was bringing them forward. They didn't really seem to have anybody in the midfield who was doing that kind of, you know, that Sam Stanton or the Sean Byrne kind of role that kind of turns the game on the head and pushes it forward.
Sorry, but Blake, can I just come back to what you're asking about the substitutions? Because there was a fan at the back of the stand, a Rovers fan, who was obviously getting a bit frustrated because we weren't playing brilliantly, and he was like proper slating Lewis Vaughan, like saying that he should have been taken off, and why is Jack Hamilton been taken off? And see when Josh Mullen put that ball through to Lewis Vaughan, Louis like, took it over the defender and slotted it in. It was like, fucking get it up, you bastard. It's like, what a start. That's why everyone fucking loves him. I mean, you know, and this is the thing as well. Sorry, I don't want to kind of jump on too much, but okay, cool. Well, certainly, I sometimes like wonder, why is Ian Murray doing that? Like Jack Hamilton's more likely to be winning stuff in the air, even though, to be fair, Caley Thistle seemed to have got the measure of him like yesterday. Ian Murray seems to just have a knack of knowing like who to take on, who to take off or whatever, and like. I just think it's a mad thing that like, back in the day, even probably last season, and definitely a few seasons ago, if Rovers were a goal down or a couple of goals down or whatever, with 5 minutes to go, you see the fans just leaving the stadium. No one does that anymore. Oh. Like people have come to expect that, like it doesn't matter what's happening. Like you support the Rovers, and sorry, I'm going to keep going here a bit because after the Dunfermline game, obviously in the podcast there was a bit of discussion about some of the young team being a bit arseholes type of thing. Well, yesterday, you've got to say credit to the young team. They were non-stop. Like, and even when we went a goal down and were under the cosh a little bit, they were just singing and singing. Rovers weren't playing brilliantly, I thought, to be fair. But whether it was like, you know, that backing of the crowd or what, or that inspired substitution by Ian Murray, which, you know, like, you know, proper, he's the Messiah. But,
yeah, I think that's two really good points, actually. Leslie, do you want to come on both of those? The crowd yesterday, I thoroughly enjoyed my time in that stand. There was a really good atmosphere in there, and then obviously the substitutions as well. What was your thoughts?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So I mean, I was saying to my dad before kickoff, we just looking around you could see we'd brought a good support. You know, compared to some games that we've seen at the Caledonian Stadium, there was a really good support. And I saw the drum coming in, and I was thinking, on one hand, this is going to absolutely do my boxing for the next 90 minutes. But at the same time, you think, brilliant. It brings the atmosphere. Substitutions, I would agree with Kev. I think, you know, the logic would dictate. You're thinking, why are you bringing off the kind of big guy up front, you know? The one thing about Inverness, I mean, I think apart from Witherspoon and McKay, there wasn't a great deal of talent. But one thing that they have always done for the last years is just have flipping massive defenders. You know, you go back to guys like Robbie Dees as well, and you know, you had Allardyce before. Then the guys have got in now, like boys. Some of them are maybe not the best footballers, and they can't even walk in a straight line, some of them, but they are just huge. And you're kind of thinking, why are you taking off the biggest attacker that we have? Our guys are just going to get knocked over like bowling pins. But it turned out to be absolutely the right thing to do. You're bringing Callum Smith on with just that bit of piece of energy. Jamie Gullan as well, who we all know can hit a ball and can certainly make a ball travel. It turned out to be exactly what we needed at that moment.
Yeah, it was a real kind of a really kind of bold thing with the manager to make the changes that he made. But I think Kev's kind of hit the nail on the head that he knows what he's doing. Like, there doesn't seem to be, and I think, Scott, you touched on this before, that some of the changes last season seemed a little bit kind of hitting hope, I suppose, actually. Like, we didn't always know what he was trying to do, but it seems to have really turned this season, right?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think this season, I've got a few theories that I think that it probably, because we've got this much thicker and bigger squad to use, that Murray's probably just looked at it and went, well, let's use the bench. We've got three guys that we can easily bring on every week, if not four. Obviously, yesterday was a bit different because Murray, Brown, Watson are all missing. So you're also missing another 3 or 4 options that could have been on the bench yesterday or starting. But I think the fact that he's probably also looking at, like, because it's these days, everybody looks at all these iPads and everything on the touchline. I can guarantee he's probably talking to is it Blair, the fitness guy, and probably going, they've probably got numbers on what guys are doing, and maybe Hamilton's been taken off, I noticed, the last 3 games on the exact same minute. I don't know if that's just a coincidence, but 77th minute, last 3 games, he's been taken off. So I don't know if it's something that he just seems to get to around 75, 80 minutes and they think, right, he's run his race. I don't know. But it might be something to do with that. But I think also that it was a little bit bizarre for 5 minutes. The boys had kind of kept playing as if Hamilton was on the park, but yet he wasn't. And so we're asking Gullan and Vaughan to win headers in the air, and it's not going to happen.
It did kind of feel like the Hamilton thing wasn't working. I think that's the key to it. He hadn't had any joy the whole game, and it wasn't because he played badly or anything, but he wasn't up against Chris Hamilton for a start, and that kind of mismatch. Do you know what I mean? Like he had a great time at East End Park, because the challenge, as much as Chris Hamilton's a battler, is never going to be able to physically battle him or for the aerial duels. Carol, that first goal then. You'll have seen the replays and the kind of Louis Vaughan. Do you want to wax lyrical about Lewis for a few minutes for us?
Well, what can you say? I mean, really. I mean, I'm with you, Kev. I would have been get it right up you to the guy behind me if he. I think I would have turned around immediately after celebrating the goal and given him a several finger salute to just get it right up you, because I think. In general, the team this season, they're not only playing for the club, they're not only playing for the manager, they're playing for themselves. They're playing it because they enjoy the game. And I think Louis Vaughan just loves scoring at the moment, and he will do anything to get the ball in the net. Because just his whole body language when he scores is like, are you not entertained? And it's like, yes, we are, but give us more. Give us more. And I think that's what he wants to do. He just wants to entertain. Because he's got so much to prove and so much to say thank you for, I think. And I think he's doing it to say thanks, because that's the only way he knows how. You can't thank the club in any other way for supporting him through all this than doing what he's doing right now. And I say thank you to him.
Love that. And it was a really well-taken goal. But bit of a mention for Josh Mullen, though. I mean, that the assist. Leslie, what was it was obviously right in front of, I know you were kind of pretty close to where I was in the stand. It was right in front of us as it happened. What did you think of the Josh Mullen assist?
It was just brilliant. I mean, like I said right at the start of the programme, with Mullen, you maybe lose something defensively, but that's what you're getting. You're just getting these quality balls into the box. And we've talked about it before. It's what Mullen brings. It's maybe a wee bit different to Aidan Connolly. If Aidan Connolly's out there, he's cutting in and he's going to unleash a screamer. With Mullen, it's like the difference maybe between kind of like, I don't know, Monster Energy with vodka added to it versus like a well-matured red wine. A very cultured, refined ball comes in, which is just put in beautifully for Vaughan. Also with Vaughan as well, I thought he was just going to hit it first time. I thought he was just going to unleash it first time and then there'd be a good chance it would go in, but he doesn't. He takes it up, he completely hangs the boy out to dry, and then rifles a wonderful shot into the bottom right hand corner down to Mark Ridger's left. So that I think the ball in from Mullen, that quality that he gives us, and also something we might not have seen in past seasons, which is just, we saw it again in the first Caley game with Jamie Gullan, rather than just hitting it, just taking an extra touch, taking an extra moment, and giving yourself a much better chance of scoring. I don't know if that's something we've been doing on the training ground or whether it's just coming through experience. But it was a terrific goal as a bit of football.
He seems to have that incredible ability to lift the ball vertically without it really moving kind of too far away from him. And he did it. I always remember the one against the Pars. He was right on top of the goalie and he just kind of flips it straight up and then skips over the goalie and then scores. And it's just a joy to watch. And it is that thing, the first time a player does something like that goal there that Lewis Vaughan scores, you would be forgiven to think, is it a heavy touch? As he went to strike it and changed his mind last minute and then kind of had to readjust. But nah, it's the thing Duncan talks about as well, watching the game in slow motion. Like, he sees what's happening. But I mean, for Josh Mullen to pick him out with and it was I was a few beers deep at this point, but it was a header, wasn't it? It was a cross from Easton to the far side and then the header. But it was pinpoint, Scott. I mean, it was right to Vaughan.
It was I mean, first of all, it was actually a really nice clipped ball for Easton that's taken out all the defenders. And at first I thought, oh, actually, like, he's actually clipped it too long. But Mullins done well to just make sure that he's there. And then I know it's a brilliant header, but at the same time, I think Mullins probably went, this is just more a hopeful, let's get it into the box and see if we can get on the end of it. And for some reason, Inverness are sat that deep in the box. I think there was at least 6 of them behind the ball there at that point. And then their attacking sort of 3 were nowhere near Vaughan either. And so Vaughan's got all the time in the world. He's managed to clip it over the boy that's eventually came towards him. And as Leslie says, it's a superb finish considering he could have easily snatched it like he did in the first half a few times, but also it's his weaker foot. Like Vaughan, I couldn't tell you too many goals he scored with his left foot. So it's brilliantly taken, and fair play just to even just, as we've said, he's done it a couple of times before where he's just taken that extra touch, which has taken a defender out the game and then just managed to score for that. It was brilliant.
Yeah, I actually thought very similar to you. I thought it was just one of those headers, but I actually now don't think that. So if you've seen the video this morning that Ben's put up, and it goes back to something that Carol mentioned as well about the boys wanting to play for themselves and play for each other. That video of the kind of the aftermath of the game and the players celebrating with each other and Big Kev just cuddling everyone. It was glorious. There was a message in the group chat this morning from Duncan just like remonstrating about how much he wants to be held like that by Kev. And who could blame him? But there's actually a point where they're chatting away and the players are coming across and the camera pans across and it's Josh, his arm around Louis Vaughan, and you hear him clearly say, I heard you screaming. And I'm just assuming it's for the goal, but he says, I heard you screaming. And the header, as he comes across, the header back, for me, isn't the obvious header. The obvious header would have been loop it to the back post, try and get it over the goalie, and hope that there's someone coming in that just kind of flattens it. But it was like a cutback with a header.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Really good. And then we go, and in true Rovers fashion, and I must admit, I, at that point, thought, we're winning this. We're winning it again. This is amazing. This is now...
I thought we were winning it at 20 past.
You did. Actually, you actually completely called it again, Carol. 93rd minute winner for a 2-1 win.
Yep. I don't gamble, so I wish I well did, because I
was going to say, next week, going to text us what's going to happen, because I do gamble, and I don't gamble very well. So I could do with a slush one. But, I mean, I don't know if we need to go through the giving of the penalty particularly too much. I'm presuming nobody's thinking it was soft.
No, it wasn't soft, but I think somebody I actually wanted to give just a quick shout out for actually is Sean Byrne to win the ball before it goes to the box. He could have easily just backed out of that because it was actually a ball that he didn't look like he was going to win, but he's actually managed to just force himself into the challenge and make it more of a 50-50 than it probably should have been. And the other boys actually been pretty weak in the challenge. And the fact that the momentum's moved the ball back up the field, Stanton's then gone into the box and then get... I think it's just clumsy for the Inverness player. The fact that none of the Inverness boys are even complaining, it just shows that everybody was just like, why are you making that challenge in the 94th minute in the box? Like, at least just try and block the shot. Don't be trying to fling a leg at somebody.
Kev, you were going to jump in there. Oh, I think we might have lost Kev. We'll come back to him. Leslie, what was your thoughts on the penalty?
It was an obvious penalty. I mean, we could actually, there could have been more than one penalty. We could do a John Greer listing up of the offences there. So he handles it first, and then Stanton goes dribbling forward as he does, and then just in complete blind panic, he just boots him across the knees. And, it's an absolute stonewaller. Referee's finger goes straight out to the spot. Like Scott says, like you said, Blair, no contestation from the Caley players. So it's an absolute clear stonewaller. And, the referee is immediately moving over. It's a penalty.
My favourite thing about the whole thing, though, was that in the post-match interview, Ian Murray still thinks it was Josh Mullen that's taking the penalty. I mean, was Josh ever taking that penalty? Or do you think that was also tactical? Just to, that thing where the player picks up the ball and they're going to get a bit of shithousing from the goalie everybody else that Josh takes all the shithousing and then hands it to Hammer, or was he ever actually maybe taking the penalty?
I think being a number 9 striker, Jamie Gullan can't be allowing somebody else to take that ball. He even admitted in his own interview he was desperate for the one at Hampden at Ross Millen, but Ross Millen went, nah, I'm taking it. So Gullan's just went, nah, it's my turn this time. And so it was no, I think Mullins, obviously, they said it was a little bit of mind games, that Mullen looked like he was going to be taking it, and then Gullan just sat back at the edge of the box going, well, I'm taking it, so I don't care what's going on here. And then eventually, once it's all been decided, he's the one that's walked forward to take it. But I tell you something, even if Ridgers goes the right way with that penalty, he's getting nowhere near it. It's top bins, and it's a brilliantly taken penalty. It's so easy to, I think, I actually expected Gullan to just hammer the ball at what part of the goal that he picked, because he's just got that harder strike that he thinks that even if the keeper gets a hand to this, he's going to be parrying it in the net because, well, hence his name, Hammer. It's just the thud that he can get off a ball that I just thought he's just going to hammer it. It's 90th minute, but he's just caressed it into the top bin. And then the scenes again, I mean, that camera that they've got looking at the fans, a shout out to somebody for when we did the K107 show. Angus is just standing there, and there's these two oldies that have walked across and they've just jumped in, and everybody else here just going, I hope they're not getting hurt. It was just mental again.
It was
tremendous. Graham Kilgour's one where you watch his feature and he runs round, but then you can see it on the fan cam, just this massive duffel coat sort of thing, just running with the camera in the hand, screaming at a pitch I have never heard before. It's just, I don't know what it does, goals do to voices, but it takes it to a whole new octave and a whole new tone.
It was tremendous.
Graham's camera, I don't know if you've not seen it, go online, look, Graham Kilgour. He's standing kind of at the side of the pitch level with the goal line when the penalty's taken. And then when it goes in, he has the presence of mind to hold his phone level and just run towards the melee. And if any of you are old enough to remember Leslie Nielsen's Police Squad Naked Gun, and there's the intro, and it's like the roof of a police car with the siren and the music playing as the police car just goes through all these scenes. Somebody with better IT skills than me needs to set Graham running into the crowd to the Police Squad theme tune, put a wee siren there at the bottom. It's just glorious.
It was tremendous. I must admit, I turned back into a 14-year-old at that point. I lost myself. I was down the front. We actually started celebrating. I was standing next to my cousin Michael was standing next to me, and he's like, we're going. And I'm like, we're going. And I went down, and I've actually woken up this morning with a sore back, like an old man, like I've tweaked something coming down these stairs and into the melee. But it was the scenes were tremendous. Another booking. This is my only worry with this. If we keep winning in the 93rd minute every week, we're going to be racking up these yellow card suspensions. I mean, we lost Ross Millen yesterday for exactly that at Hampden. And actually, I was thinking back, you guys are better with the stats than me. I can't remember Ross Millen getting booked this season for a foul, which makes me think he's probably actually got 6 bookings for being a shithouser. Massively. It was a great win, and another great kind of journey and that kind of away day thing that we have, which was tremendous. Another late winner, which has got to be that young team. We said already, the young team making noise the whole game. They're going to be hooked for life. Like, those boys they're going to remember this season, and this is the kind of thing that keeps them coming back. I mean, we've joked before about, I started going in 91, 92, and by the time I'd been going to the football for 5 years, we'd, been 3 years in the Premier League, won the First Division twice, won the League Cup, played in Europe. And I thought that was normal. Like, I thought that's just what we did. Like, do you know what I mean? But it's making memories week on week at the moment, which is really, really good to see. It's tremendous. Oh, here we go. We've got Kev coming back.
Just for those of you who are listening along, while we were chatting away there, Kev vanished into cyberspace. And as we've been chatting, Blair's been doing a big kind of intergalactic investigation to try and find him. I think, Kev has become the Kobayashi Maru or whatever of the Zoom world, and he's now back. Welcome back, Kev.
We have Kevin back. Welcome back, Kev.
Cheers. Sorry, I don't know what happened there. Sorry.
No, that's all right. You're just in time, actually, to tell us all about that penalty. So we've gone through it. we chatted through the penalty, the giving of the penalty, the goal, and the celebration. But what was your thoughts on it? Oh, we've lost him again. Technology. See, this is what happens when we don't have Duncan hosting the show. Do you know what I mean? I think I'm cursed. Right, so we'll kind of wrap up the game there, unless anybody wants to kind of talk anything else through. Actually, Leslie, I'll come back to you because you've done some Wikipediaing.
Yes. So on Wikipedia, as I mentioned in the pre-game podcast, there was a section on sporting curses, and somebody had put up the Raith Rovers Inverness curse alongside all these other sporting curses, like the one that was from American baseball involving Babe Ruth, and now my favourite one from Japan, where the Hanshin Tigers didn't win the National Baseball League for 30 years after somebody threw a KFC statue in a river. Google it if you're interested. But I took great pleasure on Saturday evening, cracking open a wee can of beer, sitting down and editing in the end of the Raith Rovers Inverness curse, and saying this was finally broken on the 2nd of December 2023, thanks to a stoppage time penalty winner from Jamie Gullan. So Wikipedia has now been updated and corrected for factual accuracy that the Raith Rovers Inverness curse is officially over.
I love that. Does that make him like the Nessie Slayer or something? You know, we've got the
Caley Scalper.
on the go. What was that, Scott?
That's a good.
He's the Caley Scalper.
The Caley Scalper. I like that. I think
if he scores on Friday against Thistle, he can be the Thistle Scalper.
That's true. I like that too. I'm there for that. Kev, we have you back.
I hope I've not missed too much. Can I just say something about Jamie Gullan and about the team as well? I just think it's amazing. I mean, he's a relatively young lad, so mature though. Like, no attitude about being on the bench, and that seems to be something that Ian Murray has got going with the team, because we've got such a decent squad now. Like there are going to be the likes of, whether it's Callum Smith, like Jack Hamilton, Louis Vaughan, like Jamie, who are having to sit out, but they seem to be so professional that whatever's happening, like, they'll do their job when they have to do their job, and like major respect to him. I just thought, listening to his interview this morning, what a lovely bloke. Top guy.
He comes across as quite a. This is one of those things that seems like a loaded thing to say, but he comes across as quite an intelligent guy as well, which isn't always the case, you know, when you get an interview with a footballer. But I think you're absolutely right. I think Ian Murray's got a real kind of squad together. You can see that the way that they celebrate with each other and all the rest of it. But fantastic for him to. Actually, and as Leslie's literally done, he's written himself into the kind of history books for us as well. He'll always be the guy who stopped that hoodoo. I mean, I've talked about it before, but the last time that we beat Inverness Caley Thistle, I was in 5th year at high school studying chemistry at a school in Glenothes. And the next time we beat them, I'm the head of science at the other school in Glenothes. Like, wow. the difference in... I mean, it's literally, and Grace Fowley, who does the social media, posted up yesterday, she's never seen them beat Inverness in her lifetime, which you don't think about, you know, when you've been going for as long as we have, kind of thing. So kind of, that's a nice kind of segue to come into our big question for today. So we've had a bit of a chat, and actually, in kind of honour of having Kev on, which was one of the things we've kind of talked about this big question a few times, and we'll probably do it again with a few of the others that are in. But one of the things I've really enjoyed about being part of this podcast from the very beginning is just finding out about all the different kind of people who are Rovers fans and why they're Rovers fans. Because, as I mentioned already in the show, for me, it was dead simple. My dad was a Rovers fan, so I was a Rovers fan. And like I say, we were good when I was a kid. Like, we were really good when I was a kid. So it seemed like the most natural thing in the world. But I'd like to just take a wee bit of time to kind of go through with the four of you. So the big question this week is how and why. So why Raith Rovers, and how did you find yourself following us the way that you do? Now, I know, Scott, yours probably pretty similar to mine, so we'll maybe get yours out of the way first.
I mean, it was, as you say, it was pretty simple. To be fair, it was the fact that my dad was a season ticket holder at Starks for so long, and it was a case of just once I was old enough, basically, my dad went, right, you're coming to football with me on Saturday, and it meant that I didn't have to go shopping with my mum. So it was, it was as simple as that, really. I mean, sort of guys that were kicking it out. My first season that I was going regularly anyway was 01-02. So again, you could probably count me also in technically no seeing us beat Inverness in that as well. But people like that was Novo's season. He was kicking around still, and Willie Nanu, them sort of players. That was the first season, and then guys like Laurie Ellis were still there as well. But no, it was just a case of my dad was there and was going every week, and so I mean, he told me every week until I started going, if you end up thinking about supporting that mob across the road, you'll be shown the door. So it was a case of right then.
I actually vividly remember I was playing under-10s football. I just started playing. I was 9 years old. And I still remember saying to my dad, I really like that Rangers top, that new Rangers strip. And he went, no, you don't. And that was that. It was just, no, you don't. Not happening. Leslie, we'll come to you. You want to tell us a little bit about how a man from the icy north ends up being a Rovers fan?
So, as you can probably tell by my accent, I am categorically not from Fife. So I was born in Inverness. My dad, however, is from Kirkcaldy, and he's been a Rovers fan since he was born. My granddad was also a Rovers fan. My great-granddad was not a Raith Rovers fan. He was a Kirkcaldy United fan, and he did not like the Rovers because he thought that the Rovers were pushing Kirkcaldy United out of existence. But again, kind of like him, a bit like yourself, Scott, it was sort of like, okay, when you're old enough to go to a game, you're coming to the Rovers. Because like at that time, what you have to remember is we didn't have Ross County or we didn't have Inverness Caley Thistle in the Scottish League system at that point. They were in the Highland League, and so everybody in the village that I grew up in supported Rangers. There were buses going down to Ibrox every second Saturday from the village. So that was it. Everybody else in my class at primary school supported Rangers, apart from my best mate. He supported Dundee United because his mum was from Dundee. So we're having a lot of fun and games in the WhatsApps this season. So the first game I went to was it was the 93-94 season. It was Hearts. We beat Hearts 1-0 at Starks. Peter Heatherston scored a goal that day, and that was the first game I went to. And then the first top I got was the cup winning home top. One of my memories from primary school actually was we went on a school trip to Helmsdale, and the tartan strip had just come out. So I got the tartan strip, we got it ordered, and so I was allowed to wear it because we were on a school trip. And I got mercilessly hassled all day by two thick as shit Rangers fans. One of whom had that red and white kind of quarter Battenberg cake away strip, and one of whom had the purple one. They were thick as shit because Gascoigne had joined Rangers around that time. One of them had got Gaza 8 on the back of his strip, and the other had got the fucking number wrong. He had Gascoigne 4. So these two numpties with completely wrong things on their strips, and I'm thinking, they're like, oh, yuck, minging strip. And I've still got my tartan strip. It still fits. I can categorically tell you neither of those two guys will still fit into their Rangers tops, and mine is worth a lot of money because it does not have stupid text on the back. So get it right up, yes. And my club did not go bankrupt. So that was kind of part of my growing up. But it kind of gave you a thick skin. It gave you a kind of, resilience to dealing with shite, because we then started to have to deal with all kinds of crap on the pitch as well. And I went to university in Edinburgh. I kept going to Rovers games, I went over and saw the Anelka games. I remember shouting things at him in French. I kept going to games when I was away. Kept following games when I was out in the Far East. I remember I came off the plane at Hanoi to find we'd lost the penalty shootout that saw us being relegated against Brechin. And just recently, being able to kind of get to more games and been able to take my wife to games as well since she's come from Japan. She saw us lose 3-0 at Cove away in a League Cup game that was a dead rubber. She's seen us lose in Inverness, and she's seen us win now at Queen's Park. So my story of just this came from my dad basically wanting to make sure that I did not end up supporting either side of the old firm and continuing the family tradition.
Fantastic. I love that. I love the fact that even being so far away, you've still maintained that kind of connection with the club. And obviously you're not able to get to quite as many games as you want to, but you seem to be a bit of a good luck charm, so keep it coming.
I do not know about that. See, I didn't want to tell you guys this, but see, before the Queen's Park game, I actually couldn't remember the last time I'd seen the Rovers win in person. It wasn't just before COVID. It was also before what the Arbroath fans call Colin Hamilton Day. We're talking about 5 or 6 years of me going to games and not seeing a single win. And now we've had 2 on the bounce, so fingers crossed.
I had that before the cup final against Rangers. I was sitting there going, I've not seen Rovers win for like physically for years. Should I be here or not? Is this a good thing or not?
Well, Carol, do you want to give us your story then? Because obviously it leads nicely to that moment.
Yeah. I think my first game was 92-93 season. I cannot remember who it was against. But in primary school, I'd loved playing football and wanted to play football and rugby, but it was still sort of late 80s, early 90s where girls weren't technically seen as a good thing to play rugby or football. So it was more encouraged, you can go and watch it. So I was taken by my mum and some of her friends along to the Rovers game, and I discovered that you could shout at people and scream and vent and get it all out, and it was amazing, and I loved it. And yeah, and I'm like you, Blair. I thought we like Europe Cup finals. That was the way. Yeah. And with the draw last night, with the Scotland draw against Germany, I just had sort of flashbacks to like late 90s Scottish football. Going, I'd love being a fan back then. 15-6 football fan me was like Rovers in Europe, Scotland in Europe. I was like, this is it. Scotland opening World Cups, and then I don't know what happened early 2000s. I play in university and drink, but that's my own personal problems.
Yeah, I'm actually kind of similar. I have that. Leslie talked about it the other day when he was talking about Scott Crabbe, that kind of period of time where nothing seemed to happen. And I'm with you. I was at uni at that point, so I don't know how much of that was the team and how much of that was me. But yeah, that's definitely a pretty familiar kind of story, I must admit. And that kind of leaves us with Kev, which is very much a very different story, Kev.
Totally, Blair. In fact, pretty much directly opposite to all the rest of your stories. Same as Leslie, you can probably notice that I'm not originally from Kirkcaldy. I'm a South London boy. Used to watch Crystal Palace in the 1980s and 90s. Moved up to Kirkcaldy in 2001, and actually lost interest in football. Now, my son, when he was about 7 years old, it was after the 2010 World Cup, he said to me, Dad, completely the opposite to use, as say, Dad, can you take me to see the Rovers? And I said, okay, I'll take him. I'll take him the once. I thought it'd probably be rubbish. He won't want to go again. Is it the 2010 season, and it was the first league game of that season, and John Beard and Gregory Taddy were just magic. And I mean, there's surrealist, Davy McGurn, Alan Walker, all of that. Johnny Beard scored a hat trick. We won 4-0 against Partick Thistle. The train went by and did the do Bez, and like we just got into it. And another thing I said to my son, I said, because back then, I mean, now he swears like a trooper, but back then he wasn't allowed to swear. Exactly the same as what Carol was saying about shouting and swearing. I said, look, you're allowed to swear at the football, but like when you get home, because your mum won't approve at all, you just don't. After that game, we decided to start going to home games, and you get to know like the people that are sitting about you. But because we were getting into it, and because Rovers were doing well, like I mean, that had a decent team back then. We started going to away games, and this is where I feel like I started becoming part of the Rovers family, because I used to go on the supporters bus, and I'm guessing that the majority of you will know Jim McIntosh. Absolute gem of a bloke. I don't know how old he is now, but he's still like going home and away, like doing the 50-50s. and he just like gave it that human touch. Was interested in knowing about us. Always would have a little chat with my son and talk about when he was working in South London. I think in the 1970s and stuff like that. That he wasn't far from my old team, Crystal Palace. So it's that connection, and the thing. But more than anything, for me, that has kept me going. And I know, like, you know, when I'm a granddad myself and stuff like that, I'll be wanting to take the grandkids. It's different to supporting a team like Palace, because it feels like when you're getting to know people, whether it's people around you or whatever, that you're part of a family. And that's the thing that I have to say, this current lot of owners seem to have totally tapped into it. It's absolutely brilliant. Like, you know, so much of the stuff, whether it's like social media or like photos of fans or video footage of fans celebrating all that kind of, you feel that you're part of something like that isn't, I mean, don't get me wrong, it's brilliant watching them play such good football now, and because I'm a bit older, a lot of the people that I hang about with at the football are in their 60s and 70s and stuff, and they're comparing this current team to the team of the mid 90s, the Jimmy Nicholl lot and everything, and it's brilliant to see that and be a part of that. Don't get me wrong, but to me, it's that whole family thing that you're part of that makes it a little bit more special. And I'll just do one shout out if I may. Now if you're coming up to the South Stand entrance, like, you know, you see Valenti's fish and chip shops. Now like I'm sure anyone who's from Kirkcaldy will enjoy the fish and chips and the like cracking ice creams and everything like that. But it's that whole connection, like that you know, Dario's dad. He's a character. He'll tell you. While you're waiting for your fish supper, about like stories from the 90s, like when Rovers were playing the likes of like Rangers with Gascoigne and all that kind of stuff. And you know, even like recently, after Bobby Charlton died, there was a Rovers story about when he was managing Preston North End, and they came up and I think Bobby Charlton scored, and like us, it's a much bigger thing than just going to football at Palace. And don't get me wrong, I'll always keep an eye on how Palace are doing and stuff. But it just feels that you're part of something quite special. And now the way the current owners are doing things, it just is lifting that and tuning into that. Now, one thing I have to mention, because like rivals always feel the need to go into all that pish about Goodwillie and all that kind of stuff. And don't get me wrong, that was a difficult time for me, because I didn't feel I could go games. But even then, I would always look for Robbie's tweets, like, you know, either during a game or after a game, because it kept me in touch with what was happening with Rovers, and then watching Raith TV and everything. And like I say, to me, it's special, and I know it's always going to be with me. And you know, obviously the things like Damien Castelnova scoring against United, like Grant Murray's header at Easter Road, all that kind of stuff. Johnny Beard, of course, like Carroll against Rangers. You know, it's brilliant. But yeah, traveling home and away, like, you know, with a hangover and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, it's all part of it. It's brilliant.
That's really, really, really nice to hear, actually. It's one of those things that I think, as somebody who grew up with the club, and I never ever thought about supporting anybody else. It's really nice when you get people who, like yourselves, have come from a kind of a different path to get to it, but actually feel what we feel, which is nice, because sometimes you don't know if it's real. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's what we think it is, but is it really like that kind of thing? So it's really, really nice to hear, and a really nice way to finish this podcast. I am going to just segue very, very slightly and just to re-hit on that, because it was something, as you were talking through that reminded me. So on the bus yesterday, we had Graham Laurie, who's a Rovers fan, who was up on the bus with us yesterday with his daughter, who had done her school project. I was speaking to him in the pub. This was quite late on, so the details might be a bit hazy here. But his daughter had done a school project on, I think it was role models, is what my brain is telling me. And she'd done her gran and Dylan Easton. And so Graham had sent this to Dylan Easton on Instagram. And at the end of the game, Dylan came over, took his shirt off, and handed it to her. And honestly, the look on that girl's face when she got that strip, if you could bottle it and sell it, you would make an absolute fortune. It was just such a lovely moment. And completely epitomises what you're talking about. Although I'm sure at this point, the fact that the shipment of away strips isn't coming until January, I think Simon's going to be panicking at this point if they keep giving away those tops. But right, I think unless anybody's got anything they want to add on that note, I think Leslie's fingers are just about falling off in that calf. So we'll call it to a close there. So all that's left for me to say is thank you very much to the four of you for joining me, and thank you very much to everybody for listening.
Cheers all.
We're on our way.
Yeah, on our way.